I'm not just here to give you ideas. I'm here to help you implement what matters most. Open your hearts and let's turn the page. Your next chapter starts now. Welcome to the Book Club with Ruth Klein. I'm your host for today. Books are amazing. They take us all over the world. They take us into the minds and the hearts and the spirits of the authors. And we have the opportunity to read a book and start looking at life in a different way. Books have saved lives. Books have changed the trajectory of people's careers and lives, families. And so here we are this morning, and I am thrilled to be able to interview this next guest. She's an author and musician, and she's so talented. She writes poems, and then she puts music, song to it, all the way from love songs to songs for the homeless. So I'm thrilled to welcome Mary Love, who has written the cutest children's book, The Adventures of Papa and Sunshine. Here you have it. So, welcome.
Thank you.
This is going to be my signed copy, right?
Yes, I'm going to sign that.
All right.
For you.
It's so cute. And I just happen to have little ones that would love this. So,
oh, wonderful.
Yes, and yes. So, Mary, tell us a little bit how you got involved in writing this darling little book.
Well, I actually used to go to church, and they would say to me at the altar at the end, "You're going to write a book." And I'd be like, "No, I don't want to write a book." I pictured it being this big novel or something.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "No, I don't want to write one." And then I took children's literature in college, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I loved it. Fairy tales we did.
The fairy tales,
Yes, and I loved the history behind it. I loved everything about it. So
I love that. 2020
happened, and people were giving up. People were saying, this may be how it's going to be, this lockdown. And, and I had watched a video by Mary Morrissey, which was one of her classes, and it was about loving money. And she spoke about this man who became a real estate success in his 90s. And lived to be over 100, got married in his 90s, lived to be over 100, was on The Tonight Show.
I love this.
And I said, if he can do that in his 90s, there's nothing I can't do.
Yeah. I'm
just going to do it. I'm going to prove to everybody COVID doesn't end you, And it came out, it bubbled out. One day I was just typing and it just all flew out, Isn't that just
one
as
day?
It is.
One day, It just came out. So So you said a lot of wonderful things there. So first of all, when you were taking English literature for children's literature, so what was it about that class or that program that just really struck you?
Rudyard Kipling, his story of the Jungle Book.
Story of the Jungle Book.
And his true story about how he lived at home, upstairs in the attic most times, and he was almost blind because they abused him so horrifically. They made him stay upstairs. They took away all his toys because he was being too loud. They pretty much locked him in there day after day. All he had was his imagination. And when I learned that he, had been practically blind because of that abuse, my heart went out to him, and I really felt inspired by him. Somebody who went through so much turmoil got out of that and became this successful author who wrote a beautiful, endearing book that everybody loves and brings people so much joy. So he didn't have to be his past. He chose to be his future, and he gave that gift to everybody. So I really like that story a lot.
Here again is how one book can make the difference in someone's life, where here we are at lockdown, you're learning about this, and you're learning it through a book, and you think to yourself, if he can do it at 90, then I can do it. And it motivated you to write this darling book. That's how powerful books are. They actually can motivate us. When nothing else can motivate us, many times a book can. I love that. I love that. And then when you were reading all the stories, the children's stories, what was it about those stories that you were in alignment with?
Well, I loved how the Disney stories were rewritten. So a lot of the fairy tales were written in a scary manner. And they, scared the kids. They scared me.
I know. Why? Why is that? I often wonder why
Snow
did
White,
they make them so scary?
Cinderella.
Yes.
Yeah. So I really loved learning about that and the metamorphosis that happened as the years went on and we became a little bit softer. So I enjoyed learning about the Disney fairy tales because he put his own spin on it, to make it loving and gentle and hopeful for a child. And that was one of my favorite parts of the class.
Oh, and so did you ever find out why it was so many of them are traumatic and scary?
She said that it was as a learning lesson for people. They were trying to obviously control their children. And she said sometimes it came down from a true story and it was told, as one of those scary fairy tales. And then from there, we just, made it beautiful. We made fairy tales beautiful for children.
I love that. I love that. And so when we talk about your musical ability, tell us how that came about. I know your parents were very, very talented as well.
Thank you. Well, I used to play the drums in my stroller. I played the bongos. And I've loved music my whole life. And I used to have perfect pitch. I could hear it on the radio and I could sing it. And I know, I don't have it anymore. But I did have it then. And it was wonderful. So I would listen to Whitney Houston and I would sing Greatest Love of All. Yes, and we did a little concert in the town that I grew up in. We did one when I was 13. And it was just a lot of fun. I was in dance class, acting classes, had different plays that I did, and so music has always been a part of my life. Writing it has been such a gift. I wrote my first song called Love is a Miracle when a friend of mine passed away. I was writing the song. I said, this is exactly a song he would like. It sounds like his song. Let me find him. And I couldn't find him. And then his brother called me and told me he had passed. And that song was my first baby. And I dedicated it to him.
Wow.
And so music is very emotional. My mother taught me that when you're singing, if you can feel the emotion of the song, you can really portray that. And I forgot to tell you, I performed at the Apollo and got a standing ovation.
Oh, man. And how old were you?
I was 38.
That's remarkable. Remarkable. And what did you perform?
My dad's song, Sunny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's historical.
Yeah. When I think about it, I'm like, wow, Whitney Houston did that.
Yeah. And so did you give that up or did you stop wanting to perform? What happened there?
I did. I went to school for counseling and I got very interested in Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Erikson and Carl Jung. And I just, I felt so inspired by some of the Holocaust stories that there were and the level of forgiveness that the victims had for their perpetrators, and it was really meaningful to me. And so that whole class was about things like that, where somebody had to overcome something in real life, in real stories about real people. and the stages of trauma, and the stages of development. And, it was really interesting. They asked us questions at the end of the chapters, and I was only expected to write 1 to 2 pages, and I wrote 10 pages.
You just kept going and going and going.
I wrote 10 pages.
You really related to it. You were really in alignment. It almost sounds like you embodied the material you were reading, just as you, I would imagine, embody the words and the music when you sing.
Yes, I try to sing from my emotions, and I try to feel the song when I'm doing it. I wrote a song called Heaven's Cry. It's about feeding the homeless and helping yet another one, not saying, okay, I fed that one and there's like 5 other people on the street. If you can, feed this one too. And I wrote it because several years back in 2014, there was a woman named Brenda who was lying on the sidewalk in New York, and people were stepping over her, and even a police officer, and it broke my heart. And I went up to her and I said, "Can I pray with you?" And she told me that her best friend had died that day, and she didn't know how to keep going. And so I gave her a little bit of money. I prayed with her. I did the best I could in that moment. I wasn't alone, so I couldn't stay very long. But it made a difference. And I know that it did, because when we take the time just to come outside of ourselves for a moment, even just a smile is really helpful, because it makes them feel acknowledged, like they're still a part of this society, and they're not damaged goods. So many believe they are, and they're not, and that's what I want my podcast to be about, is people who have lived difficult times and who have come out of it.
I love that. I love that. As I'm listening to you, where there's just so much alignment. So I have a couple of degrees in psychology, clinical and spiritual psychology. And what you were talking about, Erickson, Jung, all the whole group, that's, heavy into that. And I too loved that. I couldn't get enough of it. So then I ended up going many, many years in that area. And then now you're talking about regular people who have overcome difficult situations. And my 7th book, Generation Why Not, that I'm going on a Why Not book tour, exactly that is why is it that some people reach high levels and then lose everything, come back, and others don't? What is that? And you're taking your what you're doing is a very, it mixes so well and integrates so well with the whole idea of children's literature and writing books. And the word that comes up is hope, is that you are all about, my sense is that you are all about hope. Just because this happened, you don't have to define yourself by that. And you said something earlier. He chose to live his future life versus his past life. And it sounds like that's kind of what the podcast is going to be about.
Yes, I want it to be inspiring. And I want people to know that no matter what, they're still breathing, they have hope.
Yeah.
And it's so funny you would say that, because it is hope that I wish to instill in people. And my Native American name is Little Hope.
Don't you find that things just have this circular, they just come back from to the beginning?
Yes.
It just comes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of just coming back to the beginning, so tell us a little bit about your mom and dad and the songs and a little history, so we kind of get an idea of how well they parented.
It's in the book, I'm just kidding.
But until you read this, wait till you hear this. So, yeah.
So my father was very famous in the 60s. He wrote and performed the song Sunny, and he toured with the Beatles.
That must have been a trip.
Yes. It's funny. My stepfather actually saw him in concert before he met my mother.
That's funny.
He was very, very musical with me. I would play the violin. He'd play the viola.
Wow.
I'd play the clarinet. He'd play the clarinet. He'd buy a faux Les Paul Jr. for both of us.
Wow.
It was, but I don't read music. I do it all by ear. Mm. So I'll like la 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 a song into my little phone. I'll give that to a musician and they'll transpose it for me into notes. So I found out I'm not the only one who did that. And I can't remember his name. I don't want to say Gershwin. It's he's like Cole Porter, but I can't remember his name. I'll have to tell you another time.
Yeah.
But that's what I do. And so my mother and father both read music. They do it beautifully. My mother plays guitar, the piano. She has her own album, Gypsy Enchantress, and she has another one, Spirit Nation. My father's albums are Love Games, Sunny. He has one called That's All I Want to Say. He's got, let me see if I'm getting that right. I'm picturing it in my head.
Yeah,
but it's a newer album. He did Sunny with this beautiful artist who had this gorgeous voice, and he did a bunch of different songs on it. It was like his last work. So, and he wrote a song called Breeze, and I would call him and say, "How are you, Daddy?" And he'd say, "I'm listening to the birds and writing a song."
Wow.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the birds and writing a song.
Yeah.
So everyone has, in the creative space, their own way of creating. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
It's remarkable when you start to think of the different ways to create and how people do it. It's such an interesting story, right?
So, well, my mother creates very differently. She'll hear a melody in her head and she'll, go with that. I sometimes, my father, he was very traditional as a musician. He wrote music out with the notes and everything and took it very seriously. Wow. So he was extremely talented. And Breeze was his last song. He passed away of cancer in 2010.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
That is something that I hear too often. I think we all hear it too often. So you have definitely been surrounded by music and creativity and writing and psychology. I mean, what a beautiful combination. Now it sounds like you want to take all of that and direct it into a podcast.
Yes, I would. I really want to help people. I was in touch with my old professor. He said I'm still one of his favorite students.
Oh, does that feel good?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. He had a long career, so he's retired now. And I contacted him and told him I used to have another podcast, and it was called The Authentic Hour of the Soul. And I told him
that one too.
Yeah. Told him about it, and I was reminded of how he said that I was needed in this business. He said, we need you. We need people like you. That's what he said. And so I contacted him. I said, oh, look, I went to the Oscar party and I went to the Emmys and look at all these fun things I did. And I had a podcast and then I was struck by it. What I really want is to have a podcast that people can watch for free and that they can receive inspiration and they can receive hope and real clear kind of stories that explain very clearly how somebody did it, how somebody made it through such a difficult time and climbed back up, what the similarities were. And I would say somebody believed in them.
Somebody believed in that. So if you had a hypothesis, it would be that those people who are able to climb out of difficult situations just need one person to believe in them. Is that pretty much what that is?
I believe it doesn't have to only be one person.
But at least one person?
Yes.
At least one person to believe in them. I love that so much. One person to believe in you that makes a difference. What, in your opinion, is it that that one or at least one person does that the other person can hold on to? What is that, if you had to guess?
Seeing a vision of them somewhere else.
Seeing a vision of them somewhere else. And so if I have this right, what makes such a difference from your perspective is that when we have at least one person who believes in our vision in the future and does not accept that we need to be where we are, assuming this person wants to have this vision,
right?
Then just holding that for them energetically, right? It's an energy. It's a frequency.
Yes.
It's a frequency of hope, of love, of gratitude, even that someone would even feel comfortable sharing with us what that would be. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, a partner in believing.
A partner in believing, yeah.
Somebody who says, it's not always going to be this way.
Yeah.
I know you feel like you're never this and you're never that, but don't give up, because you're going to get out of your 20s one day and you're going to have your 30s and your whole world is going to open up to you, because you're going to be developing differently and in a different stage of life. And that's going to affect you no matter what, because you are growing. So just believe that things can get better. Try to get rid of one little thing that you don't like, and most importantly though, motivational interviewing, right? Yeah. Get them those chips of achievement. My professor talked about chips of achievement in their pocket. If they have 5, they're not going to go back to school. They only have 5 chips of achievement in their pocket. But if they have 500, where it started out slow, small goals, walk down the street at the end of the block and turn around for some exercise.
That's a chip.
That's a chip.
That's a chip.
That's a chip.
Saying thank you or smiling when they didn't feel like to smile. Might that be a chip?
That could be a chip. If the professor was with a client, he would decide, little tiny goals, any positive change, harm reduction. Any positive change.
I love that. I love that. Oh my God.
I know. I love it too.
It's so good. So good. You're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. So how can people get a hold of you or find out more about you? And certainly, where can they find this adorable children's book?
They can find the adorable children's book on Amazon.com.
Okay.
And my father's website also shows where to order the book as well.
Okay.
So you can go on to www.bobbyhebstudios with an S.
Okay.
.com.
BobbyHebsStudio.com.
Bobby Heb Studios.
Okay, studios. The S goes at the end.
Yes.
Okay, .com. Okay.
Yes, BobbyHebstudios.com. And it has articles about him and his career. And then if you scroll down, it says his daughter. So there I am. And
where can people listen to your music or find out about your podcast?
My podcast is going to be on Prosperity Network.
Okay.
And I'm going to be filming actually an episode tomorrow where I get to interview somebody that's very special. And
awesome.
And so if they go to Prosperity Network on YouTube,
okay,
they will be able to find my show. It's called Love Returns.
Love Returns. Love Returns on the Prosperity Network, a new podcast by Mary Love, and this adorable book. And you can find out so much more about the history of this musical, dynamic, creative family. And I think the one piece that hits me the most, well, there's many, but this most last, and that is, it only takes one person to believe in you. And so my question to the audience is, who can you start believing in, letting them know one person will make all the difference in the world. Yeah, I agree with that. It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary. This has been so fun.
Yeah, it has been. It's been great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Please stay right here, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Book Club with Ruth Klein. So many of you viewers have been sending in questions for me to answer around time management, around how do you write a book? How do you get more visibility? How do you get clients? So today I'm going to be talking about some things that revolve around time management. And I'm going to be reading some things from my book, Time Management Secrets for Working Women, Getting Organized to get the most out of each day. So the first question, I have two questions I'm going to respond to today with this book. The first question is from Sylvia. How do I deal with unexpected emergencies? They seem to come up all the time. I'm sorry, Sylvia, that's a hard one because we just don't expect it. But then on the other hand, what in life do we really expect? It's if we could only live, and I'll include myself, if we could live knowing that nothing we can really expect, we never know what's going to happen. And so being able to enjoy the present really helps very hugely. I'm going to go back to Sylvia's question, and I'm going to answer it with something that I have here that I think you will enjoy and maybe give an idea. It's called the big glitch, when the best laid plans ... Your day's mapped out, from jogging at 6 a.m., getting the children's breakfast and sending them off to school, to a breakfast meeting at 8, and appointments right on through staff dinner meeting at a new hotel downtown. A jam-packed day, but you've scheduled your time realistically, and you have prepared in advance to avoid all possible glitches. Right. The jogging goes well, and your endorphins give you a lift that should carry you through the day. Then, just as you're turning into your driveway and you get out of the car, your foot hits the sprinkler. You limp inside with a twisted ankle. Nothing serious, not enough to warrant a good war story, but enough discomfort to slow you down. Just as you're slipping into an ace bandage, no time for ice, the phone rings, and it's a colleague saying that she won't have her report finished in time for the staff meeting. Well, okay, you can handle that. But wait, from the den comes a piercing wail. You run to the rescue to find that your son has dropped your 10-pound dumbbell on his foot. Now you're in real trouble, and it begins to look like a day that only Wonder Woman could salvage. If you have no backup plans for such top-of-the-line catastrophes, you do all that any mere mortal can do. You carry your screaming child to the car, rush him and his broken toe to the emergency room when I think of that. Ugh. And as soon as you get to the phone, you have a chance to get back to your cell, you ring your client. When he doesn't answer, you call the restaurant where your breakfast is scheduled and beg the hostess to explain your situation when the client arrives. And it goes on and on and on, and you can put your own when the best laid plans go awry. So one of the best ways to deal with that, Sylvia, is to have what I call a SWAT team. So I'm going to read a little here, the SWAT team concept. Fortunately, this scenario need not occur. All you need to eliminate the problems and make things run smoother is a SWAT team. And what is a SWAT team? It's your personal group of special backup people who fill in at home or work when you have a real emergency. I have many examples in my files of how successful SWAT teams have worked. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine has one close neighbor as well as a nearby relative whom she calls her SWAT team. She has an agreement to call them in genuine emergencies only. I do not impose on these people for regular childcare needs or for trivial favors, she says. But it's understood that in times of crises, they'll come running. The neighbor who has a need for extra cash is well paid for her work. The relative is rewarded with special tickets to art and theater openings. Another working woman hires a retired nurse on a standby basis. For a small fee, the nurse agrees to take care of problems as they come up. Many times, she explains, this lady has been my savior. I can't tell you how much lost time she has saved me. I talked about coping with the inevitable crisis with Terry Mayo, Los Angeles' first television anchor woman. At the time, Terry was a divorced mother with a young son. She says, I've always been a very positive person and believe strongly in the power and of an optimistic attitude, she told me. But as a parent, newswoman, business owner, and just plain fallible human being, I've gained a healthy respect for Murphy's Law. Terry believes that life is unpredictable, especially life with children. Several months ago, Terry said, I had scheduled a really important interview. Just as I was about to leave, my son, Chris, locked himself in the bathroom, the dog got loose, and someone drove by and swiped the side of my car, all within 15 minutes. Luckily, Terry had an ace in the hole. She and Chris lived with her grandmother. Her live-in SWAT team took over almost instantly. However, I really believe in the idea of extended family, especially for single parents. I realize not everyone has a grandmother like mine, but single working mothers in particular should really consider joining forces with an older woman perhaps, maybe someone who's widowed and lonely and needs to be needed as much as you need a warm, loving person to be there for your kids when you are away. In today's mobile society, it is difficult to have a relative that lives near you, or certainly a live-in grandmother or aunt. But this idea of finding perhaps a retired woman or man, depending on what your needs are, and acting as a surrogate grandmother or grandfather and helping out in times where you need the help. So it goes on to talk about the different types of SWAT members you have. And I want to share with you, it's really important that you really identify what a real emergency is. So these are from my own archives, some of the number of close friends and clients. Here's a list of the 10 most common day wreckers. And there's a lot more I know, but we'll just start with 10. The totally sleepless night. A child or someone in your family or yourself throws up the night before, for whatever reason, you can't sleep. So it's the totally sleepless night. A leak, a freeze, or other disaster in your home. A medical emergency, a summons to a court all of a sudden. The need to recover after a severe trauma. The need to pay bills fast. The need to move if you must. There's a big, huge deadline lurking. An injury, illness, or death of a loved one. And the forgotten meeting. Those are the top 10 that I was able to acquire with friends and with clients. I think there's one other piece here, and the ideal is to make a dream list for your SWAT team. So identify people you know and respect before the emergency. Think of friends who have children the same age as yours, neighbors whom you trust with children, or coworkers who might be free to take on an extra task during an evening or a weekend. Again, only during an emergency. Perhaps you know a new mother who isn't ready to go back to work full time, but who would welcome earning some occasional extra dollars, or someone who's retired or between jobs. You can check with local child care directories and always ask a child care provider for references. Besides hiring outsiders, a number of women like Terry Mayo share a home with a relative or close friend. Could you ask the friend to help if there were a crisis? Others have had good luck with au pairs, young women from other countries who come to the United States on a 9-month work visa. If you have a friend who uses such a person, would your friend let you share in case of an emergency? Make sure team members in advance agree on what is a true emergency. This will be covered in greater detail later. Take all the team members' names and organize them into categories. For example, know who you can call during a daytime crisis, a nighttime emergency, a weekend, when you're on an out-of-town trip, or when you're working late. An important digression. Only use your SWAT team when you need to and for the purpose it was intended. One abusive act will alienate that particular team member forever. Let the team members of your SWAT team know, and this is really important, let them know in advance what category they fall under. And always, always, always thank them for their help by giving them a card, flowers, movie tickets, singing telegrams, balloons, a plant, dinner, or anything else your budget will allow. Don't be embarrassed to recruit team members. Chances are you may be able to help each of them as much as they can help you. Got to go for it. You've got to be able to have that SWAT team, because when emergencies pop up, and they will, unbelievable emergencies, then you can relax just for a moment to know that something is covered, and your SWAT team knows in advance what categories they're covering for in a true emergency, and remembering to thank them. And, modify, change it, delete it in any way that you find helpful. Another question that I'd like to share is, how do I get it all in? How do I get all the things done that I need to do? That one is a tough one, and I can tell you right off the bat, you will not get everything done. There's no sense to even think that. There are many, many ways that I help my clients with this, whether they're executives, authors, entrepreneurs, visionaries. There are many, many ways to deal with this, and you've got to work with your personality and also what's happening in your life. However, that being said, I'm going to share something with you that may be helpful. I remember Prevention Magazine contacted me and asked me to work with a few of their readers and on time management. And they ended up choosing one that they thought was universal enough to put in the magazine. And that was really fun to be able to do that. So there is something that I refer to as integrate or suffocate. It's not about doing too many things at one time where your presence is not available, but it is integrating things that you want to do. Let me give you an example. Years ago, my children were probably in grade school, maybe junior high, and I wanted to join a group. And they had a meeting, every month. And it was 2 hours away. And I wasn't living in Los Angeles at the time, but the meetings were in Los Angeles, and it started at 7 o'clock, perfect time for traffic. And I thought, I really want to do this. How can I make it work? And so part of integrate or suffocate is asking yourself, how can I make this work? I didn't know the answer to that, but I did know a few things. I knew that I wanted to go to the meeting. I knew that if I figured it out, it would happen. And I knew that I didn't want to leave my family. So one day I thought, you know what? What if we left a little early and we were able to leave work just a little bit earlier, took the kids, brought their pajamas, and that's what we did. We made it a family trip. And I love that, integrate or suffocate. And so we ended up in traffic. We ended up getting to the meeting. I was dropped off. I was a happy camper. My kids and husband were happy campers because they went miniature golfing. They went out to dinner. And then on the way back, we had a van. And on the way back, the kids got into their pajamas, and one by one, and everyone was really excited. When they picked me up, I just talk, and the kids, and we were just all excited because we had done what we really enjoyed doing. And then one by one child went to sleep and got a little quieter. Then the second child went to sleep, got a little quieter. Then the third child went to sleep and it got really quiet. And it was wonderful. But here's how I knew that this integrate, suffocate works. Because I would say maybe a couple of weeks afterwards, one of my children said, "Mom, when do you have that meeting in Los Angeles again?" And I thought, yes. And so we did that for a couple of years and it worked beautifully. So that's a thought. How can I make it work? And you're not going to know the answer right off the bat probably, but our subconscious is so powerful so that when we ask it a question, it starts working on the answer. And usually one of the best times of day to ask your subconscious a question is right before you go to sleep. It's as much as I know this, it still fascinates me that the body and the mind are so beautifully integrated. So I'm going to tell a little bit here what I have for integrate or suffocate. Managing your time is spending your days with quality time, quality relationships, and quality goals in several areas of your life: health, personal, family, work, spiritual, community, and money. And you may have more. The question I often ask is, how can I make this work? How can I bridge many areas of my life in each 24-hour period to make them more effective and joyful rather than stressful and guilt-ridden? I'm gonna reread that because that's probably one of the biggest things that we have to remember. I often ask myself, how can I make this work? How can I bridge many areas of my life in each 24-hour period to make them more effective and joyful rather than stressful and guilt-ridden? I have found that one solution is what I refer to as integrate or suffocate. To integrate is to combine many roles of your life and your activities. It is the intention of making a smooth, harmonious, and joyful experience for yourself as well as your loved ones by combining these different areas. So I combined my profession with my family, with having fun, and with making it an experience. It is a way of living your values and moving forward in reaching your goals. It is being present and making conscious choices, not out of guilt, not out of fear, and not out of freneticism. When women feel suffocated, that's when we plan and that's when we do for everyone but ourselves. By integrating the different hats that you wear and moving forward towards your goals as you live your values is a strong feeling of empowerment and motivation to keep integrating. It is not multitasking. I believe we do ourselves, the tasks we're working on, and the people around us a disservice when we multitask. When you multitask, it is usually difficult to be present. It is easier to make mistakes. And here's the piece that really hurts my heart when I see people multitask. And I understand you have to do that sometimes, but you miss the entire experience. I used to multitask. I completely missed the experience. And that's how I came up with integrate or suffocate. And we push our stress levels to overload buttons when we multitask. You know, multitasking is not a positive experience when you're waiting on your cell phone while you're checking your email, while listening to a podcast on your computer. Home, you want to spend quality time with your family, but you find yourself answering the phone during dinner, or you take personal time off from work to clean your house and you're bombarded by calls, interruptions, etc. Personal, you take a walk outside to exercise and talk on your cell phone for most of the trip. You may want to ask yourself a few questions. Were you present for each task? Did the tasks or behaviors bring you relaxation or joy? And did your work, family, or yourself benefit in quality and results. So I will leave you with that. And please continue to send in questions. I love answering them on the show. Feel free to ask them about mindset, business, books, time management, all the areas that I love. And you can also find me on Substack, The Sacred Energy of Time. Until next time, I'll see you at the book club. I'm not just here to give you ideas. I'm here to help you implement what matters most. Open your hearts and let's turn the page. Your next chapter starts now.